जय धारी माँ मम्मी।
जय धारी माँ।
आप सबका स्वागत है। आप सबको जय धारी माँ। हरे कृष्णा। शुभा जी जुड़ रहे हैं। हरे कृष्णा। धारी माँ जी, जय धारी माँ। आज का सेशन है रिलेशनशिप्स के ऊपर। आवाज एको कर रही है।
हाँ, किससे एको आ रहा है?
नाउ अभी बेटर। अभी बेटर ना जी। शुभा जी, शुभा जी,
Yes.
We can hear.
Yes. Yeah, I can.
आज का सेशन रिलेशनशिप्स के ऊपर है। लाइफ इज वन ऑफ आवर ग्रेटेस्ट टीचर्स। रिलेशनशिप्स आर आवर ग्रेटेस्ट टीचर्स। शुभा जी से चर्चा करते हैं और वो हमें बताएंगे प्रभु राम, माता सीता, हमारी रामायण हमें रिश्तों के बारे में क्या समझाती है, क्या बताती है। शुभा जी।
Very grateful to be here amidst y'all. And when we're speaking about Ramayan and when we're speaking about relationships, Ramayan is one of those books that actually talk about the highest level of relationships. तो हम जैसे जीवन में सबसे महत्वपूर्ण चीज हर व्यक्ति के लिए संबंध होते हैं। काम क्यों करते हैं? ताकि हम अपने परिवार को संभाल सके, परिवार के ज़रूरतों को पूरी कर सके, हमारी समाज में अस्तित्व और हमारे जीवन में जो सुख और शांति होते हैं वो संबंधों से ही आते हैं। पैसा कभी भी सुख और शांति देता नहीं है। थोड़ा सा सेटिस्फैक्शन दे सकता है, लेकिन यू रियली वांट टू एक्चुअली एक्सपीरियंस ग्रेटनेस and completeness in your life, relationships are most important. So from the Ramayan, I would like to share a few very, very interesting thoughts that will help us understand the depth, meaning and fulfillment of relationships. One of the most powerful stories in the Ramayan, which I would like to begin with, is a story of how communication happens between two people who have deep love with each other. Today is a world of communication, isn't it? Today we have so many mediums of communication. We have emails and phones and WhatsApp messengers and so many types of messengers. So the communication is supposed to be actually much more today than ever before. But you know what the interesting thing is? Interesting thing is that today people are able to communicate lesser than ever before. I know so many people who are staying together but are not able to talk to each other about their feelings, not able to express their feelings to each other. They're just staying together but absolutely no depth in the relationship. Here's a story from the Ramayan that will actually give us hope, and it'll actually show us how such deep relationships can exist and how they can exist. Just before the coronation of Sita and Ram, Sumantra is sent to bring Sita and Ram to the court of Ayodhya. And when Sumantra goes there, Sita and Ram are communicating with each other. So he calls them to the court, and Sita and Ram are communicating with each other. They're just communicating without speaking a single word. They're communicating with eyes, you know. So Ram is telling Sita, I need to go now. And Sita, she smiles. So Ram smiles back at her and he leaves. And as he's leaving, just before he leaves, he turns around, puts a garland around her, and smiles again. Sita looks at the garland. She looks, like, you know, she kind of rotates her eyes around Ram's neck. So she is putting an imaginary garland around Ram and she smiles. And then Ram smiles and leaves. And Sumantra is a third person observing this. He doesn't understand anything. And the interesting thing is, he doesn't need to understand anything because it's between Ram and Sita. So the communication between them was so powerfully expressive that for Sita and Ram, they didn't have to speak words at all because they have spent so much time together that they understand how the other person is thinking. This is one of the most important things in relationships: spending time together, spending quality time together. And it's very interesting if you think about it from this point of view. Today, when people have so many means of communication with each other, often people are sitting together, but they're chatting with somebody else. They are on their own phones chatting with someone else only, you know. So in that moment when two people are supposed to be together and talking to each other and spending quality time together, what are we doing? We are ending up actually communicating with somebody else only. The nature of today's gadgets, especially the mobile phone, WhatsApp, messengers, and social media, is that it keeps your mind not able to focus on the present, and it pushes you to focus on something else. So we are with someone, but actually we are not with that person. We are in another parallel world. So what I have understood from the Ramayan is, whenever Sita wants to have a conversation with Ram, and whenever Ram wants to have a conversation with Sita, they just set aside everything else and they sit together and talk, looking at each other's eyes, looking at each other. And the communication is not even verbal many times. And that actually shows us what really meaningful relationships are. When we reach a stage where we don't have to talk to one another, just looking at one another, you can pass the message. That is when the relationships are deepest. Language becomes a barrier otherwise, you know. So, you know, even if two people speak the same language, it's not that they're going to understand each other. Communication is always dependent on connection, and connection is always dependent on quality time spent together, and quality time spent together is dependent on how less there are distractions when two people spend time together. And that is, in my understanding, the A of relationships.
Shubha ji, what you spoke about is the highest form of love. Prabhu Ram, Mata Sita is the purest and the highest form of love. I don't know if it still exists. But what I want to ask you is two different aspects. दो लोग आपस में बात तब कर सकते हैं जब उनकी प्रायोरिटीज एक हैं. They're looking in the same direction. They mean something to each other. But when their needs and wants are so displaced, they themselves don't know what they want. How are they going to communicate, and why will they communicate? Because communication also needs truth. You cannot be lying in communicating. And the other aspect that I want to ask you in today's time and age is, शुभा जी, आजकल तो एक चुप और 100 सुख. अगर किसी को कुछ बोल दिया और उसको वो बात पसंद नहीं आई, आपको तो लेने के देने पड़ जाएंगे कि तुमने मुझे ये बात बोली कैसे। अब तुम देखो मैं क्या करता हूं या मैं क्या करती हूं। तो हम सामने वाले को देख के बात करते, कितनी करनी है कितनी नहीं करनी, और उसका रेपरकशन क्या होने वाला है। तो मन में यही आता है, बाय योर पीस। योर थॉट्स शुभा जी।
I'm going to talk to you all about a particular situation in Ram and Sita's life where there was almost like a very hurtful thing that Sita spoke to Ram. See, it's not that in every relationship there is going to be no fight at all. A lot of people think that relationship means there should be no fights, no differences, absolutely perfect harmony. That doesn't happen anywhere, including the Ramayan. So even Sita and Ram did have fights, and those fights had some meaning to them. In fact, I always tell people, whenever you have a conflict in any kind of relationship, after the fight, you should understand one new thing about each other. Every fight has to help one come closer, and that's when the fight actually is useful. A lot of people do not express themselves because they are scared. If I say something, then the relationship will get over. They don't say it, but they keep it inside. And the more you keep it inside, it's like putting one scratch on the lens. First you put one scratch, then a second scratch, then a third scratch, then a fourth scratch. At one point, your entire lenses will be filled with scratches. You can't see them. Then the relationship doesn't have any point, basically. So suppression is like a time bomb. One day it'll explode, and when it explodes, the relationship is over, right? So a lot of times we don't want to express because we think if we express, a relationship will get over now. But by doing suppression, we're actually doing the same thing, but we're just postponing the explosion, basically. So here is a story from the Ramayan that will help us understand how to deal with this, and especially these outbursts and the idea of differences and the idea of conflicts. So when Ram was being sent to the forest, he comes back to Mother Sita and tells her that I'm going to the forest for 14 years. You please take care of Bharat. He's younger and he needs a lot of care and attention. He's going to be the next king. Please support him. Please encourage him. Please take care of mother and father. And he says, please focus on your spiritual pursuits. He gives a lot of advice to Sita. Sita asks him, why are you telling me all this? Ram tells her, because you're going to stay here and take care of Ayodhya and its people, and I'm going to the forest. She says, what are you saying? There is no existence of me without you. Ram tells her, no, you can't come with me to the forest because the forest is a very dangerous place. And he tells her, you think the forest is a picnic spot? Let me explain to you. And he actually starts scaring Sita. He tells her that there are wild animals in the forest. There are waterfalls which are so deafening you can't hear anything when you sleep next to the waterfalls. And he tells her that it's so scary to sleep in the night, and so on and so forth. Sita, she doesn't really get affected by the words of Ram. You know what she tells her? Tells him? She tells Ram that, of course, there's a long conversation. I'm cutting it short. I'm telling you the essence. After hearing a lot from Ram, Sita realizes that there's no point in discussing with Ram because he's not understanding it. And then she speaks something really heavy, very unlike Sita. She tells him, if my father was here, Janak Maharaj, if my father was here and he heard this, you speaking, this, then my father would have felt that you are a girl who's dressed as a boy. Sita said this to Ram. And Ram was like, he kind of got a little shocked. And he said, okay, you come with me. Now, Ram felt hurt, that she is, undermining him so badly, and she's thinking that he's not capable of protecting her. Whatever Ram felt, Ram felt. But Sita didn't care at that point. Why? Because in her mind, there was something very important, which is the essence of this discussion. In her mind, she was thinking, right now I'm going to hurt him. But the reason I'm hurting him is so that 14 years I can serve him. And when I get a chance, I'll undo this hurt. Sita thinks like this. And she hurts him intentionally. And then because she speaks such heavy words, Ram says, okay, takes her along. But in Ram's heart, there is a pain that he's carrying, right? Because she has spoken those words that are very painful. In Sita's mind, she knows she has, made a withdrawal. She has made a withdrawal from the relationship. And she knows that I need to make up for it. So she was waiting for the chance, the right time to make up. And when the right time came, of course, the 13 years that they spent together, she did everything possible to make Ram happy, But after 13 years, the right time came. And something amazing happened. So then Shurpanakha comes in and she, messes up with Ram and Lakshman. And then Ram Lakshman cut off the ears and nose of Shurpanakha. And Shurpanakha goes and brings Khardushan and 14,000 soldiers to attack Ram and Lakshman. So now these 14,000 Rakshasas are coming to attack Ram Lakshman. Ram, when he sees that army, he tells Lakshman, take Sita into a cave. Lakshman says, come on, after 13 years, we're getting an opportunity to fight. My hands are itching for a good fight. And why are you sending me away? Ram says, just take her to the cave, very sternly. And Lakshman understands, now I can't say anything. He takes Sita into a cave. And Ram single-handedly kills 14,000 soldiers headed by Khardushan. After the war is over, Ram, body is filled with blood and bruises and cuts and dust from the battlefield and sweat, and Ram is standing there, and he has his bow on the ground held like that. And then Sita and Lakshman come down, and Sita looks at Ram. Ram doesn't speak a single word. He's just standing there with his bow on the ground, and he's looking very, very sternly at Sita, as if telling her something. You know what Sita does? Sita runs towards Ram. She embraces Ram, and she tells him, if my father, Janak Maharaj, was here, he would have married you to as many girls as he had. And in that one moment, Sita undoes what she did, 13 years back, in one moment, basically. And then Ram actually breathes. He feels like a burden being lifted off. So now the point over here is that it's not that in relationships conflicts cannot happen. It's not that in relationships you cannot express what you feel at a certain point. But when you hurt, remember, first you hurt for a reason that will do good to the relationship. And second, when you hurt, you need to make sure you make enough deposits that can take care of the hurt. Put a balm on the hurt and actually seal the hurt, the wound that you have caused, whenever the opportunity comes in. And from Ram's point of view, it's very important to understand that when Sita spoke those words, he didn't judge her. He just said, he gave her a benefit of doubt. Usually, if somebody speaks like this, they would have, just good enough reason for a divorce probably, nowadays. So, but it's important to give benefit of doubt to people you love and people who really matter to you. And this, I feel, is a very, very important aspect of relationships, because the more you give benefit of doubt, actually people live up to it. And the more you doubt, actually people live up to it. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's great to have the opportunity to give benefit of doubt to people you love. And from Sita's side, we learned these two things.
Shubha ji, again we are talking about perfect love. माँ सीता's perfect love. माँ नहीं बोलते तो ये होता नहीं, वो नहीं जाते, उन्होंने जाने के लिए बोला. एंड एक और बात शुभा जी, जब आप किसी को इतनी पवित्रता से प्रेम करते हो, प्यार करते हो, आपके हाथ से कभी उसके लिए कुछ गलत नहीं हो सकता. इसके पीछे भी कोई कारण होगा, कोई कर्म कटा होगा, कुछ होगा कारण. Ma knows best. But coming to our real times, isn't marriage about two imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other? They just refuse to give up on each other. They refuse to give up on their family. They understand the importance of family life. They understand nobody is perfect. They forgive, they nurture, they nourish, and they help you become the best version of yourself. They protect you in their own way. कभी समझाया, कभी बोला, कभी कुछ हुआ, कभी कुछ हुआ. But we have to see the source. We have to see the intention. जब कोई बंधन में दो लोग बंधते हैं और साथ वचन लेते हैं, वो बाद में याद क्यों नहीं रहते शुभा जी? वो याद क्यों नहीं रहते?
The most important reason याद क्यों नहीं रहता है, एक ही कारण है. मैं एक शब्द में बताऊंगा कारण क्या है. वो है स्वार्थ. स्वार्थ का मतलब सेल्फिशनेस. I'm going to talk about a husband-wife relationship from the Ramayan that actually talks about this and actually reveals this powerfully. Dasharath and Kaikeyi had a great connection with each other. Amazing bond. In fact, Dasharath loved her a lot. And he always found solace in her company. Whenever he had any problems in life, he found her as a person who really helped him deal with his problems. In fact, Kaikeyi accompanied Dasharath in wars. And she helped him fight some of the most important battles of his life. And in fact, once she, at the risk of her own life, she saved Dasharath 2 times in one war. Because of which Dasharath gave her 2 boons to ask, So she actually went out of the way to save his life. So remember, that means for her, and when Dasharath gave those 2 boons to her, she didn't even have any boon to ask. She said, I don't need anything. So Dasharath himself said, whenever you want, you can ask. So look at the extent of love. To the extent she didn't have any desire to ask him, she didn't want anything from him back. She just was doing it because she loved him. But what happened later? Why did the whole relationship change? When Dasharath walked into the Kopa Bhavan and he saw Kaikeyi lying down there, clothes were disheveled and she was in a disarray totally. The person that walked in, Dasharath Maharaj, he was stable and calm, and the person that was lying down there, she was not stable and calm. The reason, the difference between the two, Valmiki explains in a very interesting way. He talks about Kaikeyi being affected by sin and Dasharath being pure. Now, what is the sin that Valmiki is talking about? The sin is not any kind of papa that we talk about. The sin is the selfish element that has entered into her mind, swartha that has entered into her mind. Because she was only thinking from her perspective, my son, my father, my prestige, So it is all becoming mine. A relationship is about us, about we. The more you make it about me and I, that's when the problems comes in. When 2 people love each other, they always talk about the language of we. But when 2 people hate each other, they talk the language of me and I. And that is the translation. That's where actually this change comes in. The day Kaikeyi had that few hours of interaction with Manthara introduced her to the world of selfishness, swartha. The world of swartha is actually very naturally in us from a childhood, right? When a child is born, the child is only thinking about himself, right? The child cannot think from the point of view of society, others, what others need. Everything child puts in his mouth. It's all about me. It's all about my needs. It's all about my interests. It's all about my swartha, right? But slowly, as a child is growing up, the parents teach the child to live a selfless life, to think about others, to think about the happiness of the mother, to think about the happiness of the father, to think about the happiness of grandparents. And slowly, the child becomes bigger, learning the idea of niswarth bhav, They're learning the idea of living a life for the sake of others. And then it expands into family, society, community, nation, and the world. But there are always episodes in one's life that drives one back into the Swartha mindset, which is our primary instinct, grabbing for oneself. And usually, Swartha is connected with insecurity. When people become insecure in a relationship, that's when they become selfish in a relationship. Manthara triggered the insecurity of Kaikai. And the moment she triggered the insecurity of Kaikai, she became selfish. She didn't bother about Dasharath. In fact, Dasharath was on the floor, begging, catching her feet, and begging literally. He's telling her, I don't mind Bharat being the king. Just let Ram be here. Don't send him on exile. That's all. Imagine Dasharath, the king of Ayodhya, such a powerful person, came to the stage of begging, and she just didn't care. Her heart became cold, insensitive, and that's the result of Swartha. So when a person becomes highly selfish and thinking about one's own needs, interests, and concerns, you become insensitive towards other people's needs, interests, and concerns. And that's when the relationship becomes so difficult and so unreasonable. The same person that you love so much suddenly began to hate so much. Dasharath loved her more than anybody else. But when Ram went away on the chariot and Dasharath collapsed on the floor, Kaikeyi ran, instinctively to catch hold of Dasharath. And Dasharath just pushed her away. He said, no, you won't touch me till I'm alive. Imagine, that's to the extent it got reduced. And that's the whole idea of, Swartha destroying important and deep relationships.
We're talking of marriage right now. When one partner loses their way, and is causing a lot of self-destruction, the other partner has to hold strong. And it takes tapasya to do that. This is the only thing I can right now. It's coming to my mind, and I want to share this with you. Shubhaji, I go to our Gaushala, and we have 40 Gau Matas there. They're old and abandoned. They're abandoned cows. They've been rescued from slaughter homes. But when I look into their eyes, I see nurturance and love. They are who they are. They have been rescued from slaughter homes, but they've not given up on their own essence. That's how true you need to be to your own self. Please talk about our own relationship with our own self. गौ माता की वो जो नजर है, the nurturance in her eyes, the love in her eyes. And yes, Ma realizes, Gau Mata, there is pain in her eyes. But even the pain is giving. She's yet nurturing the Srishti with her presence. That's how nurturing the partner needs to be to hold the family together. Does that exist?
Absolutely. The idea of looking at others as humans is so very important. In today's times, the unfortunate part is that we look at people not as human beings. We look at them as numbers. And it's so very sad when we start looking at people as numbers and not as humans. It happens in the corporate world. It happens in families. It happens in schools and colleges. All of us are used to having roll numbers, isn't it? All of us are used to having roll numbers. So every corporate organization gives you a number. So for a lot of people, for managers, for leaders, for people who are leading families also, it's simply a number. But the reality is we are not numbers, we are all human beings. And the more we are treated as human beings, the more there is love and respect. The interesting thing in the Ramayana is that during the Ram Ravan war, when the whole war of Lanka was going on, something very interesting was happening just on the sides. It's not such a very elaborately mentioned part, but it's a very important part, which I feel is relevant in this point. Whenever a Rakshasa soldier would die, Ravan gave a very clear instruction. Any soldier that is dead, throw them into the ocean. That was a clear instruction he had given. Why? Because the enemy should not know how many people have died from our side. So he just didn't want the enemies to know the reality, of numbers. Throw them into the ocean, basically. But whenever a Vanara died on the Lord Ram's army, Ram told them respectfully keep the body of the Vanara aside, so that we can cremate the Vanara and give him the due respect. And interestingly, at a particular point when Hanumanji went and got the mountain, and the Sanjeevani booty, when the mountain arrived, all the Vanaras who were dead, they actually revived. They got back to life, and they became completely normal. And all the Rakshasas, they didn't revive because they were inside the ocean. So the interesting thing is, when you start looking at people as human beings and not as numbers, you think about each one individually. Likes and dislikes, we have our preferences, we have our needs. Similarly, everyone has their needs, has their preferences, has their important. Like for example, when we're sitting in an airplane and we have got a seat, window seat, nice seat, and the next two seats are empty, and there are many passengers walking into the to the aisles. Every person, I'm sure you will all understand this and relate to this. Every person who is walking in, you're just hoping they don't sit next to you. Why? So that you get two seats empty and you can sit comfortably, right? So that means look at what we're thinking. So we are thinking of our own needs, comforts, and interests, and we're looking at other people who are walking in as numbers. We're not looking at them as human beings. We don't understand that they also are looking for a good seat. They are also looking for a comfortable seat. They are also looking for exactly same thing that you are looking for. But when you are looking at them, you don't look at them as human beings. You look at them as things. And unfortunately, that's the sad reality of life. We start loving things and using people instead of loving people and using things. And this is where the dichotomy lies. And this is where relationships die a very miserable death because of that lack of respect, the lack of, being valued as human beings, and rather than just being ignored as things, basically.
शुभा जी क्या करें जब हर रिश्ता is an agenda? It's an agenda. What is in it for me? And when you're aware of it, how do you maintain the balance? Because you know the person in front of you is associating with you because of an agenda. And that's fine if you're all very clear about certain parameters and there is clarity and the lines are very well drawn. That's fine. But to relate to each other with goodness, there can be give and take. Relationships are about give and take. But why lose goodness? We are relating with agendas. Your thoughts on that, Shubhaji?
There's a very interesting conversation that happens in the Ramayan that actually brings this point that you're talking about very well. So in the Ramayan, we find an episode where Ram is meeting Sugriv for the first time. So when Ram goes to the Rishimukha mountains taken by Hanumanji, and he sees Sugriv. Now, clearly Ram and Sugriv are two different people. But they find that when they are together, if they are together, they can achieve a goal. So Sugriv is looking at Ram as a potential ally who can help him fight his enemy Vali. So when Sugriv is connecting with Ram, there's an agenda in which he's connecting. But there is a very different way in which Ram connects with Sugriv. And there's a very different way in which a neutral person, Hanumanji, is observing this. And that's the most amazing thing. So the way I'm suggesting that you look at this is like this. Sugriv is a person who is insensitive. Ram is a person who is very loving and caring. And Hanumanji is a person who is very sensitive. So when three people look at the same episode, they look at it from three different perspectives. So when Sugriv is looking at Ram, he disguises himself and comes. He is not coming as a Vanara. He changes his form to look like a human being. You know why? Because for Sugriv, looks are important. Intention is not important. So he feels, if I look good, Ram will think I'm good. A lot of people come to you with that disguise. They're looking good, behave very nicely, behave very courteously. They know exactly what to say, what not to say. They seem to be very polite. They seem to be very cordial, all that. What we call gentlemanly. But inside, there is something else. It's a disguise, basically. On the other hand, when Ram is looking at Sugriv, it's amazing. So when Sugriv comes to Ram, he puts out his hand and he wants to shake the hand of Ram. Imagine, Sugriv is a monkey, Vanara, and Ram is a king of Ikshvaku dynasty, a prince who is regal, human. And Sugriv is holding out his hand to shake Ram's hand. This is the first shake hand probably that is recorded. And you know what Ram does? He does something amazing. He holds out his hand, shakes Sugriv's hand, but he pulls him and embraces Sugriv. When Sugriv is embraced by Lord Ram, this guy melts. He doesn't expect so much love and warmth. He doesn't expect so much of affection coming from a stranger. Here he is fighting with his own brother, blood relatives, fighting like mad. And here is a total stranger. First time he is meeting him, he's receiving him with such a warm embrace. So when two people are looking at a relationship, one is coming with an agenda, and one is acting very cordial, formal, and very, we're going to see some insensitivity also. On the other hand, the other person, Ram, is ready to invest his best in the relationship. He's ready to put his best foot forward, and he's ready to embrace a person with whatever flaws he has, whatever defects he has, whatever shortcomings he has. But he understands that's how people are. Everyone has shortcomings. Ram embraced Sugriv. What does that embrace indicate? That embrace indicates acceptance. That embrace indicates that Ram is ready to forgo and forget all the shortcomings of Sugriv and accept him as a friend. And then Sugriv, he invites Ram to sit with him. So obviously they are not in a palace, so they are on a mountain top. Sugriv pulls out a branch of a tree, a sala tree, and puts it and asks Ram, come and please sit on this branch. Ram goes and sits on it. It's a big branch. And Sugriv, he goes and sits on the same branch at the same level as Ram. Hanumanji is observing this and Ram is observing this. Ram doesn't mind Sugriv sitting on the same level as him. But Ram has a problem. That Sugriv has not given a seat to Lakshman, who's also a guest. And Hanuman sees, this guy is so stupid. How can he sit at the same level as Ram? And on top of that, how can he not give a seat to Lakshman? Hanuman, what he does, he runs. So Hanuman is lower than Sugriv in rank, right? He's a minister, he's a messenger, he's a servant of Sugriv. So he doesn't correct Sugriv. He runs and pulls out the branch of a better tree, of a sandalwood tree, brings it and puts it in front of Lakshman and asks him to sit on it. And he himself doesn't sit on that same branch, he sits on the floor. When Ram sees this, he says, wow, this person is really sensitive and he knows how to handle relationships well. Hanumanji simultaneously didn't correct his superior when he made a mistake, but he showed his superior what is the right way to behave by himself behaving nicely. And the second thing is, when Hanuman saw that Ram is given some respect, but Lakshman is not respected, he offered a better tree. Why? Because now a disrespect has been done already. So he is trying to make up for it by at least offering him something more valuable, basically. And third thing, Hanuman doesn't sit on the same level. Understanding and giving Sugriva an indication, Baba, we are not on the same level as Ram and Lakshman. We have to sit below. Ram was so amazed by Hanumanji's behavior because it's not, relationships are cultivated over time with small acts of sensitivity. A relationship doesn't get established in 1 minute. It takes years and years and years of small deposits to develop. So every time Ram observed Hanuman, he was a little more impressed. When anything in this world is done, there has to be consistency, and only then it becomes valuable. Like, for example, you want to cultivate a good body. You can't say, I'm going to the gym one day and I do like 5 hours of exercise and then I'll be very powerful. Doesn't work. You have to keep going for years and years and years and years, and then you develop a toned body. You want to grow a plant, you put water for like few hours in a day and say, bas, that's it, next 1 month you take care of yourself. Doesn't work. Little by little by little by little you keep putting, and then it grows into a full-fledged tree. How do you show a person that you really love that person? A lot of people think that by saying things or by giving gifts they seem to be impressing people. So, I love you doesn't mean anything at all. By giving a gift doesn't mean anything at all. No, that's not what love is all about. Love is not about one-time acts. Love is about consistency over a period of a lifetime of doing small acts of care, concern, showing sensitivity. So if you say, tell a person, I love you, but you don't show, love is not a not a not just a random word and noun. It's a verb. Has to have an active element in it. There has to be an element of service. There has to be an element of doing something for the other person, and that's your expression of love. Love cannot be just in words. It has to be in actions, and usually it has to be in actions that are sensitive and are very, very carefully thought about. So here, through this episode, we find exactly what you're talking about: the idea of being sensitive and the idea of being careful, and even to a complete stranger, you can act in a way that wins confidence, that wins the heart of the person.
शुभा जी, तो बात तो आ रही है कि हमारी खुद की सोच कैसी है और हमारी खुद की नज़र कैसी है. Who are we? Our own relationship with our own self and our own relationship with our faith. Is emotions like love, integrity, care, nurturance, respect, value, is it a part of our being? Only then can we offer it. Faith needs innocence from us. But today's time does need a bit of alertness from us. So you can be extremely innocent inside. Outside, you have to be that wise. Because a slip or being foolish or giving in could cost you very heavy. Please guide us.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea of relationships is a sensitive balance between giving and taking. It's not that you just keep giving, 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 and you don't take anything at all. No one can survive like that. For a well to actually start keep giving water, it has to take water also, right? When well takes water from the rain and then it gives it out. And wells that only keep taking and never give out, they actually become very stagnant and become useless. So well has to give out water for it to remain fresh. But at the same time, the well has to receive water also for it to be filled. So for us to give love to somebody else, it is important that we experience love. We experience love, and that can be shared with the world. But unfortunately, a lot of times we are put in situations where we're surrounded by people who only expect to take from us and they hardly give us. So, in such times, you have to find someone who can give you that love. It could be a spiritual context, it could be a friend, it could be some other family member, it could be somebody who's a colleague in your office, someone that you can have an emotional connect with. Human beings are need a reciprocation. We are all not rational animals. We're actually relational animals, isn't it? I mean, the very fact that social media, so many different social media sites are so famous, simply shows that everyone is looking for love. Everyone is looking for deep relationships. Everyone is looking for meaningful relationships. And therefore, if you want deep, meaningful relationships, it's important to go deep and have soul searching conversations with at least one person in your life. You know, I very distinctly remember one thing that I almost can never forget. My teacher Radhanath Swami Maharaj, once he was speaking about a friend of his named Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and Bhakti Tirtha Swami, obviously he left this world about 10 years back, but the last few weeks Radhanath Swami Maharaj and Bhakti Tirtha Swami spent together, a couple of weeks literally, the last stages of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's life. So post that, Radhanath Maharaj was sharing his relationship with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and he spoke something amazing. I can never forget that. He said, whenever we meet, they used to meet once a year, and he said, whenever we meet, we have deep, soul-searching conversations with each other. And I always wondered what these deep, soul-searching conversations were. That word stuck in my mind, And I was just wondering, what are these deep, soul-searching conversations? And they used to have long hours. They used to spend all night talking and talking and talking. The next day morning, they would get up, attend the morning aarti and all that, few hours, and then again they would continue talking all day long. Like that they would spend a couple of days like this. And that's when I realized each one of us need at least one person in our life with whom we can have these deep soul searching conversations. What are soul searching conversations? Soul searching conversations are those conversations that make you feel that you are understanding yourself better. There are some people, when you speak to them, you actually understand yourself better. And that's amazing. It happens with everyone, I'm sure, right? There are some people when you speak to, you only understand them better because they speak so much about themselves. But there are some people when you speak to them, you understand yourself better because they are able to engage in conversations that are not only about themselves, but it's also about you. So, of course, and you have to play the same role for that person also. So, when we have at least one person in our life with whom we can have deep, meaningful conversations, we can have fulfilling conversations, we can have conversations that help us realize our own potential, conversations that actually help us understand our purpose and our existence, conversations that make us happy, conversations that actually make us fulfilled. That's what deep soul searching conversations are. And every human being should have at least one person in life with whom the person can have such conversations. And these conversations make life and make relationships meaningful, deep, and fulfilling. Yes, you will have plenty of relationships which are all about, you losing and somebody else gaining, basically. But you should have at least one relationship in your life which is all about you being nourished and fulfilled, and I'm sure it's not too difficult to, among your 5,000 friends on Facebook, to find one friend with whom you can have such a deep conversation, basically. And that's all you need. You don't need 5,000 friends. You just need that one friend with whom you can have these deep conversations, basically. And that makes, and of course, if that friend can be your wife, your husband, it could be your child, it could be your mother, father, it could be your brother, sister, it could be any friend in your neighborhood, it could be a colleague, it could be anyone. But everyone needs at least that one person with whom you can have these deep conversations. And then everything else can be tolerated, all the ups and downs of life can be tolerated, all the struggles, challenges of life can be tolerated, all the difficulties of life can be tolerated if we just have that one person.
Shubhaji, I'm coming back to a certain point. What is self-love? Because you can't have these conversations if you're not 100% true to your own self. If you don't know yourself, if you're not true to yourself, and your relationship with your faith is not 100% pure, then what's the point? And if you can't have an honest conversation with your own self, how can you have it with anybody else? Isn't prayer a time when you are supposed to listen? Isn't that a special time when you're supposed to listen? When you're praying and you're conducting yourself, you're living, we're doing everything. अपनी दिनचर्या हम लोग कर रहे हैं, अपनी क्रिया भी कर रहे हैं, कर्म भी कर रहे हैं. Are we 100% true to our own self? Self-talk, our self-talk with our own self, is that true? Then we come to step 2. And what is self-love? Shubhaji?
Truthfulness to others, being truthful to others is called honesty. And being truthful to oneself is called integrity. So, what we're talking about is having integrity with ourselves. Ram, in his conversation with Bharat, when Bharat comes to Chitrakoot with the whole army of Ayodhya, Ram tells him many, many things. Of the many things that Ram talks about, there's one thing that is very striking. Ram tells Bharat that every person, especially leaders, every person should have a conversation with oneself early in the morning. When I read that, I was just amazed. So he said, much before anybody else gets up, you should get up and think about what you did the previous day and analyze your actions, contemplate on your actions, and spend time with yourself. When I read that part of the Ramayana, I was just amazed. I was blown off. I said, wow, this is something that every human being should do. And this is exactly what self-love is. Self-love begins by spending some time, quality time with yourself. And Ram says early morning. In fact, he says the third half of the night. So when Ram is saying third half of the night, which essentially means, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, essentially, get up early in the morning and think. And it's very interesting that at that time, early in the morning, when nobody is awake, no noise around, no phones ringing, no messages buzzing, no pressures of work immediately, and nothing, fresh mind. What do you do first? Ram first says contemplate. think about your previous day's actions, analyze what you're doing in life, analyze what is the purpose of life, what do you want to achieve today. Obviously, even after that analysis is a time for prayer, is a time for getting into a spiritual routine. But when I read this part of the Ramayana, I was just amazed. Ram actually advises self-love. He actually advises that one should spend time with oneself, which is, and look at this, right at the beginning of the day. So isn't that so important? And isn't that exactly what self-love is? When you prioritize yourself, then you can prioritize the world obviously better.
बहुत बहुत ईमानदारी मांगता है, बहुत ईमानदारी मांगता है. सेल्फ लव बहुत ईमानदारी मांगता है. मम्मी, would you like to?
Shubhaji, this is one of the finest discourse on relationships based on true stories from Ramayana I've ever heard. It's been very, very impressive, Shubhaji. Want to thank you on behalf of the Demonstrative Learning team and all the listeners who may have heard you. Want to thank you immensely because it's coming out of your deep study of the Ramayana. The sum up which I have of you, which I think great lessons to learn. I had read about relationships, but the manner in which you've explained it is unparalleled. Here is my quick sum up. You said communication through eyes is also existing, and you gave us a beautiful example of the eye-look relationship between Rama and Sita, Mother Sita. They understood the quality of time together. Ram, Sita, whenever together, they set aside everything else. This is the third thing you said. Quality time means setting aside everything when you mean so much to each other. And it also means zero distraction. That means putting aside iPhones again. There is no attraction. That's why many meetings, people are told, leave your phones outside. Many meetings we are told, and we do say, please put your phones outside, because while in a meeting, you're constantly getting distracted. You also said relationship includes difference of opinions and fights which have a meaning, and it must help one come closer. So in a relationship, it doesn't mean you will never have a fight, but they have a meaning, and it only helps you come closer. It's a fact. Many times you've heard when in a relationship people fought, but after that they came closer because they got to know each other, they heard each other. So, and you have advocated to avoid scratches on the lens. It's better than otherwise you explode later. To avoid scratches, it's better to share out and explode earlier. You also said that sometimes in communication, there's an intentional hurt, but it is to be making up later. So you suggested small deposits to heal the hurt. I'm only quoting you exactly your words. You also said when Saina asked you what happens when a communication breaks down, why it breaks down, and you said it is when the entry of sin over purity, and there is a selfish interest. There's a sin which has entered. And you also said the relationship is about us and we, not me and I. And you can say the same person when he becomes unreasonable. That's when it is towards I and me. And you also said that we human beings are not roll numbers. We are human beings, and you told us of a great story how the Warners were Werners were saved, and they all came alive after the mountain came and the booty came, the Sanjeevani booty came, while the Rakshasas all got drowned in the sea because they were only numbers. They were not human beings. So you said when relationship becomes an agenda, we also lose goodness. That's when Saina asked you, when does it happen? When relationship becomes an agenda. And you also said relationship is cultivated, as you said, in small deposits. It needs consistency, needs perseverance. It's like plants being watered. And love is not a one-time account. Consistency over the years, it's a verb. Love, as you said, is a verb to be cultivated in relationship. And in a sensitive balance to give, but also receive. It cannot be one way. Many times housewives only give, but the husbands only receive. they also want a give and take of a loving relationship and caring. And you also said it's soul searching. Every person needs one such in life. And then you said to feel nourished. But in the end, I think it's just wonderful, which I feel, even if you get one friend. But in the end, you said, I would say, I've read somewhere that if you're not a friend to yourself, then you are in wrong company. So if you find a person, you're blessed. But if you don't find, then it is you who's your friend. Be your own friend. Otherwise, you are also in bad company. I think this is the way I would like to sum up what you said, Shubhaji. I want to thank you for the immense knowledge you gave us all. Thank you, Saina.
Thank you. Thank you, Mummy.
Thank you, Kiran. Your summary is much better than my entire 1 hour's discussion.
All your work. Our learning from you. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sainaji. Very grateful to all of you all for giving me this opportunity to serve. And thank you to Demonstrative Learning for providing this platform to serve. Thank you.
आप सबको अब अगले महीने मिलेंगे और हमारी चर्चा होगी लीडरशिप पर। जाते जाते जो हमें पूजनीय होता है उसका हम ध्यान रखते हैं। रिलेशनशिप्स हमारी सेक्रेट स्पेस है, खुद के साथ भी दूसरों के साथ भी। उसका ध्यान रखिए, उसको एक्सप्लॉइट मत करिए। ध्यान रखिए अपने रिश्तों का ध्यान रखिए अपने रिश्तों का। They go with you. The karma that you create in your relationships, they go with you. They are with you all the time. That's how important that karma of relationships is. आप सबको नमस्ते, थैंक यू, प्रणाम। आप हम सबके साथ जुड़े। हरे कृष्णा, जय सिया राम, जय धारी माँ। मिलते हैं आपको अगले महीने। जय धारी माँ। थैंक यू मम्मी। थैंक यू शुभा जी। मम्मी।
Shubha ji.
Thank you.
थैंक यू शुभा जी। थैंक यू मम्मी।
Thank you very much.
अगले महीने मिलते हैं। जय धारी माँ, जय धारी।